doesn't totally represent the people of Carroll County these days. And one of the things that should happen is we need to do a better job with our website. And once again, I attempted to pull the minutes off the website this morning and they were not. I couldn't get them via Internet Explorer or by Firefox. So I say, I know you're working on negotiating once again with the IT people, and I know that we have people here who are quite capable of putting together a user-friendly website, and something needs to happen now. Thank you. 2 years of saying that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, Mr. Brown.
Clarification. At the last meeting, you stated that when the truck comes in, it will be paid for.
Right.
Number one, will it be paid for in full at the time of delivery? And two, how is it being paid for?
It will be paid for out of the farm budget, and when it comes time to balance it, we will be asking the delegation to transfer funds from another department to take care of that.
So it's not going to be all paid for
yes,
by
it
the,
will be all paid for
out of the farm budget. Not completely out of the farm.
It's charged to the farm budget, but the delegation said that it should be taken out of the budget. So we will take it out of the budget. Right now, we don't know where it will come out of. It depends on how much money is left over in certain items. But it will be charged to the farm because it's a farm vehicle.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And then we will transfer the money from other departments to make up for that.
Out of the budget.
Out of the budget. Yeah.
Yes. When we talked about the tax bill going up 17%, would that be broken into half one tax bill and half the other, or is that there are two tax bills per year, right?
It depends on the town.
Okay.
We received the money in December.
Oh, okay. And I talked to the business office. They said that if you applied the money from the bond and paid it back in full, that number would be about half. Is that your understanding?
My understanding is we can't take that bond money and pay to reduce taxes.
But you could make a bond payment.
That goes towards the principal of the bond. Yes.
But that would reduce taxes, right? So that would reduce the percentage, wouldn't it?
On the new nursing home, but not on the taxes.
Okay.
Mr. Albee.
Damon called me last week, and actually there's a nonprofit meeting today, so I find myself here. And I understand the tradition that you have about not taking money out of reserve or other places in order to reduce taxes and letting the delegation come forward to do all of that. But just a really cursory look at the current budget as it stands and the proposed budget that you've sent to the state, I can find easily the $2 million or $2.5 million that you're looking at for increasing taxes. So the notion that we're going to increase the taxation by 17 cents or 17%, I think I don't understand what the scare tactic is all about, because ultimately in March, when the budget's finalized, we won't be increasing the taxes by that much at all. As far as taking the money from the bond and making the payment, that's an exercise that the commissioners could have done.
Taking what now?
Taking money from the bond.
Oh, the bond.
And making a payment. It would in fact reduce the amount of expenses by $1,175,000, which does reduce the amount of need for additional taxes by $1,175,000. But in addition to that, if you track where your expenses and your revenues are today, you're close to $1.8 million. You've got $700,000 worth of additional revenue track, and your expenses are down from what you projected by about $1.1 million. So even if you discount that by 50%, there's another $900,000. Now we're up to we're up to $2 million. So we're looking for $400,000. So I think the budget that you submitted isn't going to be obviously it isn't going to be the budget that we end up paying taxes on, but I'm concerned that that Damon, and I mentioned it to him on the phone, when it starts hitting the paper that county taxes are going to go up 17%, it's going to hopefully have a public outcry. But the reality of the situation is there's no way in the world they should, unless you retain all that money. The other thing that, and I'm as guilty of it as you are, David, or Commissioner Sorensen, I never read the bond agreement. I don't think you have it either. No. So the use of the money that's left over, I think we're depending upon Kathy Gary,
that's right,
and bond counsel to tell us what that is. But I think it would.
We've received a letter from bond counsel saying we have two choices.
I think it would be a good idea to read that, because inherent in those two choices are some movements. I mean, you probably got close to $100,000 worth of equipment purchases that you're going to do throughout the county. Those are capital purchases. Mm-hmm. That's another $100,000 that you could probably take from that bond money and apply, which would reduce the amount of need for taxes by an additional $100,000. Lastly, on the DEAS $700,000 increase, is there any discussion whatsoever about the hold harmless that we entered into with the state? So do you foresee that happening?
No. I see us paying that $700,000.
So none of the other counties are willing to say to go forward with it?
Right. Right.
And what's the reasoning?
The agreement was that the counties pick up the DEAS and the state picks up everything else. I don't know how much everything else went up, but DEAS did go up. And it doesn't necessarily go up by across the board for all counties. Depends on the county.
And is there ever an accounting that's given to the county for that?
Well, Mr. Babson has been checking into that with Health and Human Services, and maybe he's got something to report this morning. He hasn't had very good returns on his calls, from what I understand. But,
well, I mean, this morning they announced that the state lost their case and have been found guilty of misallocation of Medicaid money.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine that that particular instance of misallocation is the only one they've ever done. And having that much of an increase in our DEAS then, I think bears looking at at any rate. And I was going to say finally, but I have to agree with Ann Ayton. When you structure...
I'm not sure what she has said with that you're agreeing with.
I'll bring it up.
Okay.
When you structure your pay increases on a penny basis, i.e. 30 cents an hour, what you're doing is you're giving a 3% increase to a $10 an hour worker and a 1.5% increase to a $20 an hour worker.
That's correct.
You're not rewarding your most able workers. You're actually making them go backwards. If you have a 3% inflation rate, those workers who are most able and most educated and most valuable to the county are actually taking a 1.5% hit. So as we did in the last few years, structuring the raises on percentages is more equitable to the workers. So I have to agree with Ann in that regard. Thanks.
That's your opinion.
It's the truth.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Benson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have a copy of the recent minutes from Tamworth, and when Tri-County CAP came into their board seeking funding for their programs. One of the notes that says here, there are loans on property in Tamworth, and the county does provide an incidental contribution of 1.4%. Well, first of all, I've got to find out what the 1.4% represents. But second of all, where do we provide any money for CAP?
I'm not aware. We don't.
I didn't think we did either.
Ask them to show you. As far as I know, we don't provide anything to CAP.
That's what I thought. We're not giving any money to transportation.
They had put in for $1,000, never requested it, and so it was never paid.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure before I call them.
Anything else? Yes. Maureen?
Just reading through the minutes about the canine training dogs, is that gonna happen? That training gonna happen in the old nursing home?
Yes.
It is?
Yeah, we approved that last week.
It's just another good reason to not tear the building down.
Yeah.
Who would foresee uses like that? Thanks.
Anybody else? Public input? Okay, seeing none, then we'll move into the agenda. Will, you're on the agenda. Oh, minutes first, please. You got public input?
Can I just address one subject matter? I just want to follow up on Mr. Alby's comment about pay raises. Last week when I attended this meeting, the only comment that I heard out of Commissioner Kenny was federal employees haven't received a raise in, and I'm not sure if you said 7 years or 2 years or...
Federal employees have a pay freeze for several years.
Okay. And then there was nothing else said. You didn't follow it up with anything.
And I said, keep it in mind.
Okay, so with keeping that in mind, I want to see if you're aware of, for my department, corrections, if you're aware of what the starting pay for a federal corrections officer is.
No, I didn't check into that.
Are you aware of what the starting pay for this county is? For a corrections officer?
Yes.
And what would that number be?
I have it on my desk.
You have it on your desk?
Take
Well,
it is in the 20s. So what is your point? What do you want to say? Federal
Well-
employees have a pay freeze for several years. They don't get free meals. They don't get laptops.
well, thank you for bringing that
They
up.
don't get cell phones.
I do appreciate that. So
Yeah,
let me just,
and?
the starting pay for a corrections officer in Carroll County is $29,368.63. Starting out federal employee, and I have these numbers for you so you don't have to go to your desk, is $38,619 minimum up to $51,193. My point is, it's a lot easier not to accept a pay raise when you start out $10,000 higher. That's the point I'm making. So comments like that demoralize employees.
Well,
That's my point.
they have a lot of cuts. They have a lot of cuts too. And like I said, they don't get free cell phone, they don't get free meals, they don't get free laptops.
And neither do I. So when you speak,
So your
I would
cell
appreciate when you
phone
back
is
up.
not paid,
when you back
you
up,
don't get a free meal.
actually I'm on call 24 hours a day and I get a portion of my cell phone reimbursed. But I will be glad not to be on call to give that up if you would like.
That's not this.
My point I'm trying to make is, when you put out comments like that, I have no problem with no pay raise or the information on how you come up with a pay raise, but when you make a simple comment with no facts to back it up, it's demoralizing. That's my point.
Okay. Anybody else got any comment? I will say, and I have to give the delegations some credit, and that is, at least Carroll County is not in any kind of physical deficiencies in finances. We're above board and a lot better off than some other counties. Not saying that we don't deserve more, no question about it. It's a fight every year to get our budget passed, and it'll be a fight again this year. Regarding Mr. Alby's point of the $700,000, I think when you add up unemployment, retirement, and there's some other 6 different categories, we're like $800,000 in increases that are beyond our control. If you take the $700,000 as one that we have no control over. We could also add in OSAB taxes, which is only $6,000 or $7,000, but it's $6,000 or $7,000. Not an increase, but it's something we have no control over. If you take that out of our budget, then it reduces our budget request down considerably. If you look closely, and you'll have those budgets available on Monday, there are several departments that are below. There are no increases for several different reasons, but there are some that are below, and there are some that are above. The jail is still above, and so is it the Sheriff's Department. And we've submitted our budget, so now it's up to the delegation to decide where we go. one of our major problems is last year we